Hi, everyone. I'm Kimberly Black, and I'm here with my husband, right there, Rob Tardick.
Hello, everyone.
We're in the same house. We're just in. He's in his office, and I'm in mine. Just for ease of the interview here. But I wanted to talk about a topic today, and instead of me just spewing my opinions and bits of information, I thought it might be useful to interact with Rob. For one, it's really important for men to be part of the conversation that I'm about to talk about. And Rob has been, since last summer, since my attack, he's become very cognizant of the role of men in ending gender-based violence. So he luckily has agreed to sit and talk with me today about a few different items. So thank you for
Welcome, honey.
joining me today. So I'm just going to flip over and explain what is the significance of the month of May. So May is Sexual Assault Prevention Month. And what does that even mean? So it's an opportunity to raise awareness about the devastating impact of this crime, to better understand its deep cultural and historical roots, and to support victims and survivors, and to work together to stop the violence. So the comment in particular that I wanted to focus on today is the deep cultural and historical roots. So what do I mean by that? Deep cultural and historical roots. Now, I don't by any means think I'm an expert, historical expert on this topic whatsoever, but I do have my own unique perspective to bring to this discussion. And as some of you may know from watching my previous videos, I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian religion that basically has some very backwards views, particularly as relates to women. And one particular article was brought to my attention recently, and I don't think I ever shared it with Rob. And I wanted to get his take on it without having seen it first. So he's never read this particular paragraph I'm going to share, but I wanted to get his opinion as a jump-off point for this discussion. This particular article says, "Treat him respectfully." Now, we're talking about an article entitled, "They Resisted Rapists." So the subheading is, "Treat him respectfully." What it says is, the intended victim should remember that the rapist is a human. No doubt there are circumstances in his life that have precipitated his behavior. So, although a woman should not cower in fear and permit a rapist to intimidate her, at the same time, she should treat him understandingly as a fellow human. So, I just saw the rolling of the eyes there. So, I really wanted to get the perspective of a man, in this case, my husband, on how you would interpret a paragraph like that. And you come with your own unique perspective because you're the husband of a woman who was attacked in this way. But how do you perceive such a paragraph?
Uh, I'm still in kind of shock and dismay from even reading such a, a horrible statement. I don't know who wrote that. I didn't catch the name. I don't want to catch the name of whoever wrote such nonsense. It. I don't know what code of ethics, standards, behavior, or doesn't. There is nothing. There's nothing that pertains to any type of rational behavior that would justify the actions of such an individual, and then for a female or anyone to be understanding, you know, as a victim to the perpetrator. They're almost saying that you should provide, for forgiveness and understanding and compassion to this individual based on their circumstances, and we don't know. We don't want to judge what they've been through, and like honestly, just a bunch of BS. Like honestly, like how is that even relevant to the act of what was being? There is no justification on this earth or any solar system or universe that gives any entity, whether it's human, any type of organic matter, to go in and attack somebody, um, violently, sexually, in any form, lay a hand on somebody, and there be justification for that. There's no condition, there's no environment where this is allowable. I don't care who you are, what argument you're going to pertain to me, and how bad this person or this person, whatever their upbringing was, they were on. That's just nonsense. I don't even want to hear that. What does that have to do with anything? You know what I mean? How does that even pertain to having the right, or some type of, I don't even know what, justification to harm an individual, be it my wife, be it my mother, a daughter, a grandma, any female, anybody for that matter, male or female. There's no justification, no cause, and there's completely, like I said, there's no way you can argue the matter here, like what they're saying. So it's just such a preposterous paragraph.
I wanted to get your opinion on that because that article was written. They don't give the author's name, but he's one of the leaders of the organization I was raised in, and I try not to say the name of their religion so that I don't get shut down on YouTube, whatever. But anybody that writes for that organization, first of all, is a male. Second of all, lacks education because education is viewed poorly within that organization, like post-secondary education. So there are no therapists. There are no people that have any kind of expertise in dealing with things like that. They're just people that are writing out of their you-know-what. Anyways, so what are some other things that have been written by this organization relating to that? One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this today was because something that is really at one of the roots of the problems of sexual-based violence, gender-based violence, is victim blaming, right? We tend to blame the victims who endure abuses, but then there's reasons for that. And a lot of those are culturally based, cultural constructions, social constructions. So the next thing I'm going to share is some more written information from that organization about how women are viewed in these cases. So let's take a look at that. So another article on how you can protect yourself from rape basically says, why are girls so often so easily raped? Their first mistake is, and then it goes on. And their second mistake is, and it goes on. So right away, the blame is being placed on the victim, the mistake of the female. And then later on, the next mistake this person made was. So in this particular article, it goes on to talk about the mistakes women make. And often those mistakes relate to stereotypical behavior of women that perhaps they broke stereotypical gender-based roles, right? Like maybe they wore a short or tight skirt, or maybe they were out late. Maybe they were alone with a male. Things that are considered against gender-based expectations.
Just nonsense listening to it. Again, as anybody, you don't even have to have a sense of, or go the route of education. You have to be well versed. This is just all common sense. You know, there's no there's no justification again for it doesn't matter what the quote these stereotypes of how they're dressed, where they're walking, who they're walking with, what time of the day or night they're walking with. These just all nonsense arguments. You know what I mean? That more quote mistakes that this person or again this complete fool is writing about that doesn't matter. Those are again those are not viable reasons or mistakes. Those are not mistakes. A woman is allowed to walk. A woman any time of the day. If he again if she feels fit. What where are we living in these days that you have to you know um yeah, it's just ridiculous. Um, is there a crime? I'm not to say that I'm not aware of conscious of their, there's crime and there's certain maybe areas and stuff like that that for it doesn't matter if you're man or woman, you should try to avoid. You know what I mean? Or not great choices to walk maybe at night in certain areas, certain parts of every city on the planet. You know what I mean? Um, but for a woman, like I said, to be like I said, these mistakes of maybe how she was dressed. A woman can dress however she wants, really, whatever her individuality and her whatever makes her happy and is showcasing her individuality as a human being and what her emotional state is that day. She's happy. She wants to go out. She wants to wear shorts or whatever. Who cares? You know what I mean? Again, there's no. That's not a mistake, and it doesn't definitely doesn't give anybody justification to now think they have any type of ability to touch this person, let alone attack and violate somebody the sanctity of human being. So again, this is just all just a normal guy listening to this. You know what I mean? It's just totally irrational. Uh, you know, language. I don't know what to say. You know what I'm saying? It's a paragraph of your nonsense. Like
Admittedly, these articles are from the 80s, but one thing I can say is that in my experience with this organization, they decommission literature that no longer fits into their indoctrination. So the fact that these articles still exist on their database implies that they still abide by the teachings that are found in the literature. So I looked at other literature that addressed this issue and came across, what are some of their tips for women? And one of their articles, the best way to avoid a rape situation is to avoid rapists. I'm not quite sure how useful that is. It goes on to say some men will use a woman's style of dress or her willingness to be alone with him as an excuse to rape her. Again, taking away the attention from the man, the perpetrator, whether man or woman, but the perpetrator, and directing it back at the woman, at the victim. So the best way to avoid rape is to avoid rapists. It's really really preposterous.
it's always the perspective here of they're putting it everything the onus on the woman. You should avoid rapists. You should avoid hanging out with men that you don't know very well or strangers or letting in a repairman. I'm reading something like says into your home to repair something. Like what? What are you talking about? Again, constant blame and nowhere does it like in general. I think too. What's lacking is the education of men and young men and men of all ages, but especially boys and men who are growing and they're trying to find themselves and they need a lot of shaping in their lives from parents and figures of who can provide just good, strong foundational advice, life skills, and life advice to young men. It seems that this story, this narrative, is always talking to the women and what the women should do, and the women are always the ones in forums and talking and having the conferences and stuff. And there's just a general void or an absence of men and perspectives when they're the perpetrators. They're like I don't know what the percentage is, but 9 out of 10 times, if not 10, it's a man. is attacking, sexually assaulting, raping women. You know what I mean? The turnaround, how many times men are being raped by women. I don't know. Throw some numbers at me because I'm sure not hearing those numbers. And I'm like I said, I'm not you know, I'm not quoting science here and facts, but I guarantee you, uneducatedly, it has to be like a ratio of 99% or just a little bit less to one. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
um, it's just ridiculous. So we have to get men into the conversation.
Another aspect I wanted to draw attention to relating to this is found in the leader's handbook for this organization called Shepherd the Flock. Now, this is a 2020 edition. And if you go into this particular, into this literature and you type in the keyword of rape, what it does is draws your attention to this one paragraph here. It's the very first instance of this word. And it says, one who is raped would not be guilty of porneia. First of all, can I just say, the sentence should read, one who was raped would not be guilty of anything. But this organization chooses to immediately go down the avenue of victim blaming. And what is porneia anyways? If we scroll up, porneia is basically sexual immorality. And that's a whole other rabbit hole you can go down. But basically, it's saying, well, thank goodness someone who is raped didn't commit sexual immorality, because God forbid, you know? So not only are you experience victimization by being raped, now you're called into question, well, did they commit sexual morality? It's disgusting. And if you read further, it says, discernment is needed in considering claims of rape, taking into consideration such factors as the mental disposition of the person, the circumstances that led up to the incident, again, victim blaming, and any delay in reporting, again, victim blaming. So what's your take on this, honey?
I think the narrative is going to continue. You know, there's a pattern to that nonsense that I'm reading, and there's obviously a response that I'm saying the same thing. It's just it's ridiculous. I don't know how else to say it, hon. It's hearing this is there is the person who is um on the person who is assaulted in any way has nothing to be blamed for. You know what I mean? There is no justification for it. Even, you know what I mean? There's nothing. I can't. I'm trying to even think of. I can't. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, there's no situation where a man has a right to attack and beat and rape and assault a woman. Doesn't matter. Even if she hit him first or spit on him or called him the worst names in the world or threw a chair at him or whatever. You know what I mean? It
Yeah,
doesn't matter. You know,
yeah.
that's not the action that is required for that situation. You know, you don't you do that. You know, if somebody verbally or physically or something, um, be you're a strange woman, a white, any woman, for instance, whatever. You know what I mean? And that's not the reaction that any man should have. You know what I mean? That's not the right. It's not justified. You can't react that way. You know, and again, education and having the proper dialogue with young men and honestly, even men younger than me, older than me, who are, just have such biases and have grown up, in a have very stereotypical views, maybe still of women, like outdated, old school guys club rules of women. Their head need to shake too. You know what I mean? They just haven't had it brought up to them. You know what I mean? They just maybe nobody's called them on it. Um, so it's disgusting, and it's unacceptable. And again, there's no situation that warrants. Doesn't matter what I don't know if that word parnia or whatever it is. It's just
Well, this is partly why I thought it was a worthwhile topic to bring up in this video, talking to you, because there are cultural and historical roots to people's perspectives on uh, rape, sexual assault, violence against women. What is at the root of it? Well, I'm going to share a video clip. I've shared this in another video before, but kind of talks to the views that some men still have of women.
You know, scientists say that the cranial capacity of a woman is 10% smaller than that of a man. So now this shows that she's just not equipped for the role of headship. Her role is one of subjection to the man.
It talks to the role of submission that women are supposed to play to men. I mean, and this is a cultural structure that's been put in place, historical, cultural, religious, often. And it's interesting. There's another paragraph from an article I'm going to share related to that right here. It's giving advice on how to fight back. But it says fighting back can be difficult for women because they have been conditioned for a lifetime to be polite, passive, and submissive, even when threatened by physical force. Um, what I find interesting about reading that quote, that women have been conditioned. Yes, they have been conditioned by these religious organizations. They are the perpetrators of this conditioning to be submissive and passive and deferent to men. So you end up in a situation where you're in fear for your safety. Um, yes, that's very possible. Women will defer because that's what they've been taught, to be passive and submissive. And this narrative needs to change for reasons of safety, but logic. There's no logical reason for a woman to defer to a man. No logical reason to feel inferior and to feel like less intelligent or feeling the need to be in submission to a man. That is a cultural, historical narrative that feeds into gender based violence,
Very much so. And
right?
that's I'm saying, so that narrative has to change. It's obviously it's been around a long time, way before us. And so moving back, all we can do is, we and everybody and who's involved, everybody can get involved, is to help educate and people now. We
Yes.
end gender-based violence, end sexual. Well, how's that's going to start talking? 'Cause people just have to start talking about it, and men have to start talking about it to other men. Men have to start talking to women, and we have to change this whole. Again, I keep working that using that word narrative, but that's what it is. It has to start from today moving forward. Because yes, it's already been there has been this historical, you know, stereotypes that have taken place and hold and firmly rooted in society and the culture of many different cultures. And so we have to, it's almost like you have to put a wall up or steadily plateau this and then bring it down. You know what I mean? Starting now, 2021, I wish it was before, you know what I mean? But it's never too late. You know what I mean? So now it's like we have to bring the conversation out and have it, talk to people, talk to men, we should talk to women. We should talk to their sons, to their nephews, their grandchildren, whoever. And honestly, frankly, some of the old school guys need to talking to themselves. They need to be talked to as well to change their or slowly, if possible, migrate. Um, they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, that's just just a really archaic way to think these days.
It
You have to
is.
learn to change your thinking, and you have to be open to changing your way of thinking. Just because something has some not even accepted, but some type of cultural norm or stereotype that's been built, that's what it is, and you leave it. You know what I mean? You kind of just let's say, well, that's the way it is. Women are submissive. I'm the man of the house, and I come home, and wife has to have the food on the table and clean. And in our place, who does I? I'm more than happy to do the cleaning. I clean the
He
house.
does do the cleaning.
Well, you know what I mean, and do it. You know what I mean? It's
It just comes down to your position on gender equality, and
yeah, exactly.
we need to promote that in our young men.
Yeah,
So
and
what?
establish older and the current my age and older guys, especially too. Some of them because
Yeah,
they're out on certain topics. You can hear them talk, and it's just like I'm not going to describe a certain culture or a country or a group of individuals, but I've heard it from guys all over the place, young and old too. I find too, but young, we have a chance now to really help shape their minds into like adopting understanding what the rights of women are, and what I mean, of society, and reestablishing these quote stereotypical norms that they think or they hear their parents or their dad talking about or grandparents or uncles, and you got to
yeah,
reshape their minds. And in turn, those men need to be, like I said, teach an old dog some new,
yeah.
educate yourself. You know what I mean?
And one of the things I wanted to share, a uh, I thought, okay, well, I don't want people to think I'm picking on picking on the religion of my upbringing, even though that's very easy to do. I did look at some other scientific research into the role that fundamentalist religion plays in victim blaming, in blaming women for their rapes. It's absolutely disgusting. Anyway, so this particular article, clergy's attitudes and attributions of blame toward female rape victims. This particular study, it starts off like all articles about what research has already been done. What does the literature say about women in this case that have been raped? How have they been viewed by the clergy? And too often women become victims twice. They're victimized through the assault and then afterwards by being blamed for it. And there's a lot of interesting points made. I'm not going to share all of them, but over 200 clergy were interviewed, and I think they were from 21 different denominations. So what is the bottom line? So let me just get to the discussion here. Okay, so our findings strongly support the hypothesis that the more sexist and religiously fundamentalist clergy's attitudes were, the more negative were their attitudes towards rape victims, and the more they blamed the woman for her assault. Victims, the middle paragraph here, victims are discouraged from seeking help outside the church, but it's also highly unlikely that clergy and parishioners from whom the victims may seek counsel have had sexual assault awareness training. And I know this to be true because the religion from my upbringing, it was strongly discouraged. It was basically unheard of to seek help outside of the church, to get help from someone who was professionally trained, because they didn't have the same views of God as you and they were evil. So why would you take advice from an evil person? So it was discouraged to even seek help. And then further, it goes on to say, a lack of knowledge combined with fundamentalist beliefs that women should be passive and submissive place women from fundamentalist churches at high risk of being victimized, of receiving inadequate support, and therefore of suffering prolonged adverse effects of victimization, such as depression and anxiety. This is a really good article, and I'll leave the link to it for you in the description below. Now the clergy, they were Christian denominations. We didn't kind of that particular study didn't branch into other religions, and we certainly know there's some evidence in other religions too, where there's the fundamentalists oppress women and have less views of women, which places them at higher risk.
Uh, I am the first to admit I am no expert on any type of religion. I have my own beliefs that I have every right to have, just like everybody else has a right to believe. But again, like I said earlier, as long as you're living on this planet Earth, in this solar system, and I don't care what future organisms we're going to see or find and what, UFOs and other planets. My point is there's no justification. There's no mistakes. There's no rationale that you could put into these stupid paragraphs that I'm reading. Like, honestly, this is just nonsense trying to, justify, make some justification. They're trying to come up with some rationalization way to explain the mistakes and why. And again, victim blaming here. There's nothing valid here. Again, you're putting everything aside. It's just utter nonsense. It's just hard for me to even fathom that we're
It's
in a day and age where this is still, we have to discuss the idiotic mindset of these individuals, these male individuals who are writing this utter nonsense. You
crap.
know, why would they? Yeah, it always has to, and in bringing this, and it comes from this religion or non-religion. It doesn't matter. Like, that has nothing to even do with it. It's just
Well,
it's
it's interesting that you say that because just to be fair, just so that it didn't seem like I'm, anti-religion or something, because I'm not. If that's what you feel you need in your life, I fully support that, as long as it doesn't demean anyone. But what I did was I found a study that was done. I'm just going to pull it up here, entitled Tweeting Rape Culture, Examining Portrayals of Victim Blaming in Discussions of Sexual Assault on Twitter. So this particular article is very interesting. It's from 2018, and it looks at Twitter, the Twitter feed relating to sexual assault victims. I think they were rape victims of members of a football team. There were several young guys that targeted some girls and raped them. And what ended up happening was that the public, the tweets reflected that the public blamed the victims. They were more concerned about the perpetrators' futures and how might this destroy their future, these football stars, because of these rapes, instead of focusing on helping the women. So victim blaming, as it says here, it's when you hold the victim responsible for their victimization. And basically, if we look through this article, I'm sorry to flip your eyes here. Embedded in victim blaming ideology is the just world hypothesis, which is the assumption that individuals receive morally fair consequences and outcomes based on their behavior. Just world beliefs lead to the assumptions that victims must have done something to cause their own victimization, shifting the focus away from the perpetrators. And there's lots of details in this particular article, but what it does is it highlights how it's not only religious fundamentalism that, puts women at risk of experiencing victim blaming from being sexually assaulted, but it just talks about the social construction, the narrative that exists even on social media in the world about how women become the focus of attention when they're attacked. What did you do? What did you do wrong? Right? So this article, it says in summary, the virgin horror binary was used to justify rape as part of a just world. This is problematic because it teaches women that they are responsible for their own victimization and places the blame on the victim rather than the perpetrator. It absolves perpetrators and decreases the chance that women will report rape or sexual assaults. And this is a whole other area too, where women won't report what happened to them because they fear people won't believe them and that they'll be viewed as dirty or that they won't get the help that they need when, regardless of what situation you were in, whether like I was talking with my husband about this, whether you're 2 o'clock in the morning walking down the street naked, but it doesn't give anyone the right to put their hands on you and touch you. Like, you are not to blame for what happened to you. And I know you remember the November 7th Town of Whitby event,
Yep.
right? Well, it's interesting that I think we did that 7 weeks after I got home, and I hadn't spoken publicly. I basically came home, and I was home all the time, and that was the first event where I went out and spoke publicly. But it was interesting when I was preparing my words that right away, even at that time, my head went to victim blaming and how I might be perceived by others. And I'm just going to share a short clip of what I said at that November 7th event hosted by the Town of Whitby in support of women and against gender-based violence. So I'm just going to share that clip with you now. So often, women who experience violence blame themselves. Perhaps this is a way to regain a sense of control over confusing and traumatic events. And sadly, often, women become victims of blame by others who are looking to make sense of the unthinkable. We all want to know the why to the what. I chose to go for a walk alone, like I had many times before. Many women reached out to me, admitting that this incident really hit home because they too go for walks and runs alone. Many even regularly on the same route that I was on. So when you see that clip, what you hear, what I say is, it's understandable that a victim would blame themselves, like, oh, it's my fault. I shouldn't have gone for a walk by myself. I shouldn't have gone for, like, we blame ourselves, and sometimes it's to find control, like, because, oh, if I do it differently next time, it won't happen to me. So I have some control, and that's understandable. It's a coping mechanism, I guess you could say. But there's also the side of the victim blaming side, the overtones of questions from others. Well, what time were you out? Were you alone? The questions like that, they're, I'm sure, not meant to be harmful. No one would ever suggest that I asked for it at all. I know that, but it implies responsibility. Well, maybe you shouldn't have gone for a walk alone. Maybe you shouldn't have gone for a walk. That's not. We need to be mindful about asking questions like that, because it implies victim blaming, and we want to avoid questions like that. Yes.
Yes, agreed, 100%. Yeah, because it can take down that path, and yeah, when using that word, it's understandable that, well, there's no understanding of what, you know, there's nothing to understand. This is it. You don't do that. A woman can walk at 8:30 at night, 10:30 at night, 8:30 in the morning. She can jog alone. She can jog with 20 other women. You know what I mean? There's nothing to debate and to really have to try to understand. You know what I mean? It's a null point. you know, leave them alone. Leave the woman or the people, whoever it is, to do what they're doing. If they're jogging, they're walking, they're riding a bike. I don't care. Bird watching doesn't matter. Just you know, if you don't know that person or whatever, and you have there's an intersection. Whether you know the person or you don't know the person, like with just go on your own way.
To summarize, May is Sexual Assault Prevention Month. Great. How do we prevent sexual assault? Well, it's easy to say, women, don't go out alone. Don't go out after dark. All the things women should not do. Okay, there may be some logic to that, because we would tell even our boys, to be careful about the environments that they find themselves in. But a lot of the narrative, I think, needs to be switched to how can we help our young boys to grow up, to not even have the suggestion in their head to commit any act of violence or any kind of harassment which presents itself in having thoughts and actions that show that you view women as not your equals. So harassment has a lot to do with inequality, as a matter of fact, and that's where it all starts. So teaching our boys to regard women as their equals, not to consider them as weak and to be submissive and unintelligent, and all of these cultural and historical narratives that have been very damaging to our society. And we're lucky to live in a Western culture that has initiatives like having Sexual Assault Prevention Month and the federal budget investing lots of money to help initiatives like that. We're really lucky to live in a country and a province that does that. So it's interesting. One of the songs that has really hit home with me lately is Dua Lipa's song. Is it Dua Lipa or Dua Lipa? It's actually Rob who pointed out the singer to me. He said he used to hear her a lot on the radio when he would come to the rehab and hospital to visit me. And anyways, her song "Boys Will Be Boys." I'm just going to read some of the lyrics from that song to wrap up. But it says, "It's second nature to walk home before the sun goes down and put your keys between your knuckles when there's boys around. Isn't it funny how we laugh it off to hide our fear when there's nothing funny here? Sick intuition that they taught us so we won't freak out. We hide our figures, doing anything to shut them out. We smile a way to ease the tension so it don't go south. But there's nothing funny now." The lyrics of that song really resonate with me now for some reason. And I never would have really given it a lot of thought before, because I always felt safe and protected, and I never really worried. But unfortunately, we do have to worry, and we do have to find ways to protect ourselves. The flip side of that is we need to be careful that we support people that are victims, and that we don't blame them indirectly, inadvertently, by the questions we ask and the assumptions that we make, because ultimately the person at fault for any kind of assault is the person that did the assaulting.
Just need to educate. There just has to be more education. There has to be more voices heard. Um, Men need to listen to what women are saying. They need to take part in the conversation. That's one thing, because again, we're not seeing general a lack of men engagement, from males in these discussions and topics and um, all these initiatives, whether the government, we have to get men listening and hearing this, and you know what I mean? It has to penetrate those brain cells and rewire those neurons. You know what I mean? And it takes a long time to do that. It's not going to happen overnight. We've been reading that book, The Buddha Brain, and just one little thing, and you can, restructure your whole cognitive and the way your neurons are wired and your thought process. You can do that. You can change the way you think. You can, adapt new strategies for everything in life, right? You can adapt and change, and you can grow, and you can learn new quote tricks, like I was saying. Um, but you have to be willing. You have to listen. You have to be open to hearing thoughts that might go against your cultural or your foundations that you were taught and indirectly taught, maybe by your dad, or you saw these, You know what I mean? Just from friends and other people in the neighborhood, schoolmates, or wherever on television. You're just bombarded by all different sources of information, whether from the media or personal relationships and wherever street talk. So you have to be open first to listening, be willing to change, and just get involved in the conversation. I think that's the first step we need to do: get way more men involved in listening. And be aware and conscious of what's going on. Like, open your eyes and ears. This is real. This is happening. You know what I mean?
Would you,
Because if
going forward, if you maybe you're more conscious of it now, if you heard other males in your circle, which probably wouldn't be common because I know the men in your circle are they're lovely people, but if you heard within your circle demeaning comments to women or things that kind of piqued your ears, like red flag, would you feel more
yeah,
inclined now to say something?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I will. It's just, and not that even before this, you know what I mean? It's just, like I said, I am blessed. I got good friends, and they all got good head on their shoulders, and they're good people. I was, and yeah, and that's also a thing through education and just, you know, bettering yourself and bettering. When you better yourself, you want to hang around with better people. you know don't go, like I said, looking to find the right person or other people. Be the right person. You know what I mean? So work on yourself, and other good people and better people will migrate towards you. You know what I mean? So there's less instances of, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But even in that chance that you go out of your circle of friends or whoever, and we're not pretending we're perfect, everybody I know or myself, but you have to be conscious of what's going on in society and relevant issues, especially this stuff that's going right now. You know what I mean? And you have to make a difference. You have to, be willing to. And the first step is just being able to listen. At first, I think for a lot of guys need to listen, hear this, and then, get involved and hear what women are saying. And but we need to hear what we need to hear from men, is what I'm saying. You know, and there's still a lot of growth. There's a lot of work to be done here. You know.
And I really appreciate that you were willing to share your voice on this. I know. Sometimes when I talk about my upbringing and the damage that it has done to me personally, it can be very very draining on you. So I appreciate that you took the time to listen and give your input on that. So pay attention. May is Sexual Assault Prevention Month, and just pay attention to ways that you can
Yeah.
protect yourself, protect your little girls, your little boys, and look for opportunities to help people that are survivors of sexual violence, and even keeping an eye out, a, a preventative eye if you notice something that might be a little bit amiss with someone in your life, that you can help out, and then look for ways to avoid victim blaming. Even if you feel angry or you want to you want to know the why to the what. Like I said, well, there has to be a reason why that happened. Yeah, sometimes the reason is just bad luck, and there could be any number of reasons, but either way, it's never the victim's fault. So we need to look
Yeah.
for
No.
look for other questions to ask that don't have victim blaming overtones, I guess.
Not of the situation was yours was more like a lightning strike.
Yeah.
Just good and evil. Meeting. You're just on your own, walking, minding your own business, doing a walk. So yours was, like I said, a lightning strike, freak, occurrence that the majority of human population will never have happen to them. You know what I mean? It's such a, you know, the percentages are not even there. So, but for other people, you know what I mean? If it's, you know, um, I lost my train of thought, but brothers could be very close to home, domestic violence within the family and stuff like that. Um, there's no recourse. There's no, you know. there's no way that we can blame doing this victim blaming. We have to take the onus on ourselves and moving forward, educate, help in any way, let create awareness like the month of May. We need more of these, but we need to hear it more. And the government's doing, like I said, I think they're having more initiatives. And it's person by person. We need to create the conversation. And sometimes it's a little awkward. You know, but it's a reality that has to, you know, go away. You know what I mean? We have to put an end to this, once and for all, this mindset. And for future generations, I think that's where the key is, the people young and everybody living today. It's just moving forward. We need now to, you know, create the narrative that this is wrong, unacceptable. And the future is bright, as we say, right, hon? We gotta,
The future is bright. Yes. Okay. So on that note, thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing to this channel. If you haven't done so already, it would be great if you did. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, so that's really great. And as always, be positive.
Positive.
I was waiting for you to get be positive. Yes, and stay tuned for more. Thanks, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.